There's an unwritten rule you've been forced to follow since childhood. One more dangerous than any religion. More effective at keeping people obedient than any government ever could. They don't call it by name. They just whisper it into you until it becomes your second skin. Be nice. Be polite. Be agreeable. They tell you it's what makes you a good person. But what if I told you that this niceness was never about morality? It was about control. Every empire, every system, every authority that's ever existed has known one truth. A polite population is an obedient one. A man afraid to offend will never revolt. A man desperate to be liked will never rise. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He watched entire republics collapse. Not from invasion, but from men who lacked the courage to say no. Men who mistook being liked for being respected. Men who were too soft to lead, too agreeable to survive. So he wrote something the rulers feared more than any rebellion. A book that dared to say, if you want to command, stop trying to be loved. The church banned it. Kings condemned it, because it exposed their greatest secret. That niceness is the leash around your neck. And yet here you are, 5 centuries later, still wearing it proudly. Apologizing when you've done nothing wrong, laughing at jokes that insult you, agreeing to demands that drain you, terrified of being called rude. Look around. Every powerful man you admire, every leader, every conqueror, every master of their fate, shares one trait. They are willing to be disliked. They don't chase approval. They command respect. Society will tell you that being rude is evil. They'll say you're arrogant, cold, heartless. They said the same about every great man who refused to kneel. Here's the truth Machiavelli tried to give you. You cannot be powerful and pleasing at the same time. You must choose. Because the moment you stop caring about being liked, you become free. You become dangerous. You become real. What you're about to hear isn't self-help. It's war strategy. A manual for killing the weakest part of you. The obedient, smiling servant who fears rejection more than failure. You were not born to be agreeable. You were born to be formidable. So kill the people pleaser inside you. Not tomorrow, not gradually. Now, because the longer he lives, the more of you dies. There is a sickness spreading through modern men. Subtle, silent, and centuries in the making. It doesn't attack the body. It devours the will. It infects the spine. It leaves the mind sharp, but the spirit obedient. Machiavelli would have called it exactly what it is. A political disease disguised as a virtue. Most men don't even know they're infected. They think their politeness is morality. They think their silence is maturity. They think their self-sacrifice is noble. But beneath that mask lies the truth. People-pleasing is fear wearing a smile. The origin of the disease. This disease doesn't start in adulthood. It begins the first time you're punished for saying no. The first time you're told to stop being difficult. The first time you're rewarded for staying quiet. You learn very young that approval equals safety. You're taught that making others uncomfortable makes you bad. You're trained to believe that conflict is dangerous and harmony is holy. So you adapt. You fold your anger into yourself. You dim your own instincts. You replace your desires with whatever keeps the peace. Over time, this becomes a habit, then a belief, then an identity, and the world claps for you. You're such a good boy. You're so polite. You're so easy to work with. They praise the disease because it makes you predictable, because it makes you harmless, because it makes you someone who will never challenge them. The symptoms of the infection. By the time you're grown, the disease has fully matured. It shows itself in ways you barely notice anymore. You apologize when you didn't do anything wrong. Out of reflex, not guilt. You agree with people you don't respect, just to avoid tension in the air. You keep relationships alive that drain you because you fear being alone more than being unhappy. You work harder than everyone else, but speak up less than anyone else. You tolerate insults, delays, disrespect, and convince yourself it's not a big deal. Everything becomes not a big deal. Until one day you wake up and realize your entire life has become one long string of not a big deal. Meanwhile, the people around you, those you tried so hard to please, keep taking, demanding, expecting. Because the disease doesn't make others kinder to you. It makes them bolder with you. Why the people pleaser always loses you. Think people appreciate your niceness. They don't. They interpret it. When you can't say no, they assume you have no boundaries. When you fear conflict, they assume you won't defend yourself. When you rush to help everyone, they assume your time has no value. When you're too available, they assume you're not important. Human beings don't respond to kindness. They respond to cost, to consequence, to boundaries. A man without boundaries cannot command respect. He can only beg for it, usually without realizing it. This is the fatal flaw of the people pleaser. He tries to buy respect with kindness. But kindness is free. And what is free has no value. The world rewards scarcity, not generosity. Resolve, not agreeableness. Strength, not softness. And deep down, every man knows this. Even the people pleaser knows it. That's why he feels exhausted, disrespected, overlooked. He's living in a moral fantasy while everyone else is living in reality. The psychological trap. The people pleaser isn't just nice. He's addicted. Addicted to approval. Addicted to peace. Addicted to avoiding discomfort. Every yes gives him a moment of relief. A temporary high that says, at least no one is upset with me. But the cost is long-term spiritual decay. He trades his self-respect for temporary harmony. He trades his integrity for temporary approval. He trades his future for comfort in the present. And the worst part? He thinks he's being good. He thinks he's being noble. But there is nothing noble about being weak. Nothing moral about lying with a smile. Nothing righteous about sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't do the same for you. The moment of realization. Every people pleaser eventually hits the same moment, the breaking point. The moment where the polite mask cracks and the buried anger leaks through. Because beneath every overly nice person is a man filled with years of unspoken resentment. Not because others hurt him, but because he never protected himself. That's the disease. Not the world mistreating you, but you allowing it. And once you see that, you cannot go back. Niceness gets a man used because the world has learned to read it for what it truly is. Not virtue, not goodness, but a quiet announcement that he has no defenses. A polite man thinks he's being moral. Everyone else interprets him as someone who will not fight back. And human beings, every last one of them, are drawn almost instinctively toward whatever offers the least resistance. It's not malice, it's instinct. People take the easiest path, and the people pleaser is always that path. You can see the pattern everywhere. The nice man becomes the one who stays late when everyone else leaves. He becomes the friend who adjusts his schedule while nobody adjusts theirs. He becomes the partner who gives reassurance constantly but receives none in return. Not because he's loved less, but because he's respected less. Respect is built on boundaries. Niceness is built on the absence of them. And a man without boundaries becomes a tool, a convenience, something to be picked up when needed and set aside when not. The people pleaser believes kindness creates gratitude. In reality, kindness without cost creates entitlement. When you give too freely, people don't think, "He's so generous." They think, "He'll do it again." The first favor feels like appreciation. The 10th feels like expectation. The 30th becomes an unspoken requirement. And the moment you hesitate, the moment you even consider saying no, people look at you like you've broken a contract they never had to sign. Niceness conditions people. It trains them. It teaches them that your time is always available. Your energy is always accessible. Your tolerance is endless. Your resistance is non-existent. Once someone gets comfortable with that version of you, they won't willingly adjust when you finally try to stand up. They'll get offended. They'll push back. They'll accuse you of changing. But the truth is, you're not changing. You're stopping the performance they benefited from. Humans sense hierarchy long before they understand it. They subconsciously place others above or below them. A man who never pushes back, never asserts himself, never imposes friction, he gets placed at the bottom of that hierarchy. Not because others hate him, but because he signals that he belongs there. And people respond to signals, not intentions. Look at the people who command respect. They aren't rude for the sake of it. They are simply unafraid of displeasing others. That's the difference. They do not chase approval, so their presence has weight. They do not cling to harmony, so their words have force. They do not fear conflict, so their boundaries remain intact. Even their silence feels stronger than a people-pleaser's enthusiastic yes. People think confidence draws respect. It doesn't. Consequence does. If crossing you has no consequence, then you cannot command respect. You can only hope for it. People don't respect what's safe. They respect what's stable, firm, unmovable. Niceness is none of these things. Niceness bends. Niceness yields. Niceness absorbs the blow and smiles afterward. And once someone sees that you can absorb a blow without responding, they stop treating you like someone who can deliver one. There is a moment, always, when the people-pleaser realizes what he's done to himself. It looks like exhaustion, but it's deeper. It's the awareness that his entire personality has been shaped around avoiding disappointment. Other people's disappointment. He sees how often he agreed when he didn't want to. How often he showed up when he wasn't valued. How often he tolerated words and actions that would have made a stronger man walk away. And he feels resentment. Not toward the people who used him, but toward himself for allowing it. That resentment is the symptom of a dying identity. The mask is cracking. The truth is leaking through. A man who pleases everyone eventually comes face to face with the person he pleased the least, himself. Niceness gets you used because the world only respects a man who respects himself. And self-respect isn't loud. It isn't arrogant. It isn't aggressive. It's simply the ability to say no without explaining, without apologizing, without trembling. It's the refusal to betray yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It's the willingness to disappoint others instead of disappointing yourself. Niceness won't save you. Strength will. Boundaries will. Selective coldness will. And the moment you stop offering your life as a discount service, the world will adjust. Not willingly, not gracefully, but inevitably. Because people only stop using you when you stop being usable. Rudeness has been demonized for a reason. Not because it's immoral, not because it's harmful, but because it threatens the systems that rely on your obedience. From the time you could speak, they taught you that being rude was the ultimate social sin. Not lying, not manipulation, not cowardice, rudeness. The slightest hint of firmness was punished. The faintest sign of a spine was labeled attitude. They didn't fear cruelty. They feared a man who could say no without apology. because a man who can say no cannot be controlled. Rudeness, in its purest form, is simply the refusal to accommodate. It is the rejection of the unspoken rule that you must be pleasant at all times. It is the willingness to disappoint others. And that, more than anything, is what makes it powerful. The world doesn't bend for the agreeable. It bends for the unyielding. The people who get what they want aren't the ones who make everyone comfortable. They're the ones who make themselves impossible to ignore. A firm tone is perceived as strength. A direct statement is perceived as authority. A refusal, spoken plainly, is perceived as danger. Even the smallest act of blunt honesty shifts the psychological dynamic instantly. People stop assuming, they stop demanding, they start recalibrating, because suddenly you're not predictable anymore. You're not pliable, you're not safe, and humans respect what they can't predict. This is why rudeness feels like power. It's not the sharpness of the words, it's the boundary behind them. You've seen this dynamic your whole life. The coworker who says, "I won't be doing that," gets treated like a higher-ranking figure than the one who smiles and agrees. The man who refuses an invitation gains more intrigue than the one who eagerly accepts every offer. The woman who says, "This doesn't work for me," is valued more than the one who tolerates everything quietly. Nobody admits this out loud, but everyone reacts to it instinctively. The person who refuses is the person with value, and the person with value is never ignored. Rudeness, real rudeness, is simply the courage to prioritize yourself openly. It's not theatrics. It's not cruelty. It's not aggression. It's clarity. A man who is willing to be blunt communicates something terrifying. He cannot be manipulated by guilt. Guilt is society's favorite weapon. Guilt is how they keep you polite. Guilt is how they keep you small. But the moment guilt loses its effect on you, the entire power structure flips. Suddenly, you are the one others adjust to. And here's the psychological secret no one teaches. People tolerate rudeness from the powerful, but punish it in the weak. If a leader snaps, it's dismissed as intensity. If a dominant personality speaks bluntly, it's called confidence. But if a timid man does the same, they call him disrespectful. Why? Because strength legitimizes rudeness. Weakness doesn't. This is why kindness works when it comes from a powerful man, but destroys a weak one. The powerful man's kindness is a choice. The weak man's kindness is a survival mechanism. One is respected. The other is taken advantage of. Rudeness changes this instantly. It tells the world, my kindness is optional now, not automatic. It introduces friction, and friction forces people to reevaluate their behavior. When you speak bluntly, you raise the cost of interaction. When you refuse politely, you raise the cost even further. When you state your boundaries without wrapping them in apologies, you raise the cost to its rightful level. Suddenly, you're no longer the discount version of yourself. You're full price. This is why rudeness feels like liberation, because for the first time, you stop begging for dignity and start enforcing it. Most people aren't prepared for this shift. They expect the old version of you, the agreeable one, the soft one, the one who was easy to predict. When they encounter your new tone, they'll call you rude, difficult, arrogant. They're not describing your behavior. They're describing their loss of access. Rudeness is what happens when you lock the doors they once walked through freely. Once they realize you are no longer afraid of disappointing them, the game changes. They adjust. They think before asking. They retract demands. They approach you with more care. They treat your time with seriousness. They choose their words more wisely. They become more respectful. Not because you became nicer, but because you became someone they cannot push. That is the true power of rudeness. It restores the balance. It returns you to yourself. It signals that your life is no longer a public resource. You stop being the cushion that absorbs every blow, and you become the wall they cannot move. And in a world built on pressure and expectation, there is nothing more powerful than the man who refuses to bend. Learning to become disagreeable is not about becoming hostile. It is about reclaiming the authority you surrendered without realizing it. The world taught you that being easy to work with makes you admirable, that being flexible makes you mature, that being endlessly patient makes you virtuous. But the truth is simpler and far more brutal. The man who fears disagreement fears himself, and the man who fears himself can never become powerful. The first step in transforming into someone formidable is understanding that conflict is not a threat. It is information. Most people avoid disagreement not because they are peaceful, but because they are fragile. They crumble when someone pushes back. They panic when their approval is threatened. They retreat the moment tension rises, as if tension itself is a sign they've done something wrong. This is the conditioning you must dismantle. You must become comfortable standing inside the heat of disapproval. Let people be irritated. Let them misunderstand you. Let them feel disappointed. Their emotions are not your responsibility. Their expectations are not your commands. Their reactions are not your burden. You are not here to manage their comfort. You are here to protect your sovereignty. Once you strip away the instinct to immediately appease, something strange happens. You begin to see how rarely disagreement escalates into anything dangerous. People push hard only when they sense you'll collapse fast. When you stop collapsing, they stop pushing. What you feared was never real. The conflict wasn't the threat. Your imagination was. And once you face it, you realize you were living under a spell cast by your own insecurity. The next stage is practicing blunt honesty, not cruelty, not emotional violence, just truth delivered without the sugarcoating you've used your whole life. This doesn't work for me. I'm not available. That's not my responsibility. I disagree. These are simple sentences, yet to the people pleaser, they feel like detonating explosives. And in a way they are. They destroy the version of you who relied on softness to survive. They break the pattern others have come to expect. They shatter the illusion that your compliance is guaranteed. You will feel guilt the first few times. You will feel the reflexive urge to explain yourself in long paragraphs, to soften your tone, to make sure the other person doesn't feel offended. Do not collapse back into that instinct. You are not responsible for managing reactions. You are responsible for maintaining truth. And truth requires simplicity. Over time, a new identity takes shape, one that no longer uses politeness as a shield. You begin choosing silence over people-pleasing. You begin valuing your own comfort over the comfort of those who drain you. You stop volunteering for unnecessary tasks. You stop accepting invitations out of obligation. You stop pretending to agree when your mind burns with contradiction. And slowly, without fanfare, you become someone who is not shaped by external demand, but by internal standards. People will notice. Some will respect you more. Others will resent you. Those who benefited from your softness will accuse you of being different, cold, rude, selfish. Remember something. When you stop sacrificing yourself for others, they will interpret it as betrayal. Their disappointment is not a sign you've done something wrong. It's a sign you've stopped doing something wrong. The real transformation happens when you realize that disagreeableness, the willingness to stand firm, to refuse, to confront, is the foundation of all power. Every strong leader, every influential personality, every respected individual shares one trait. They are willing to create friction. They do not chase harmony. They do not fear tension. They do not adjust their identity to fit the room. They let the room adjust to them. When you become this way, your presence changes. People speak to you differently. They anticipate your boundaries. They consider your time valuable. They think twice before placing burdens on your shoulders. They do not assume access to you. They do not assume your agreement. They do not assume your compliance. You become someone who must be approached with intention, not assumption. And that is the essence of power, being someone whose reactions matter, being someone whose boundaries alter behavior, being someone whose presence imposes structure. Disagreeableness is not darkness. It is clarity. It is the ability to navigate the world without betraying yourself in the process. You are not becoming rude. You are becoming real. And the world only respects what is real. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes something unsettling. Most of what he calls kindness was never kindness. It was strategy. It was fear. It was a way to make the world less dangerous by making himself smaller. You soften your voice so you won't provoke anyone. You agree quickly so no one thinks you're difficult. You suppress your needs so you're never seen as a burden. This is how the people pleaser survives, by disappearing a little more each day. But survival is not living, and a man who disappears eventually reaches a point where the world no longer notices he exists at all. When you begin killing the people pleaser inside you, you must face this truth directly. You have spent years negotiating away parts of yourself in exchange for peace. You paid for temporary approval with permanent self-loss. You handed out pieces of your dignity like samples at a market stall, and now you must reclaim them one by one. The first thing you reclaim is your time. You stop handing it out like a consolation prize. You stop rushing to answer messages the moment they arrive. You stop rearranging your entire day to accommodate someone who wouldn't do the same. You begin asking yourself a question the people pleaser never asks. Is this worth my life? Because time is life. And when you give it freely, you are donating your existence to people who haven't earned it. Then you reclaim your voice, not the polite whisper you've been trained to use. Your real voice, the one that speaks truth without trembling. You start telling people when you disagree. You start expressing your preferences without apologizing. You stop lying just to avoid conflict. You stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. This alone transforms the way people treat you, because honesty disrupts the script they've written for you. Next, you reclaim your presence. You stop walking into rooms like a guest in your own life. You stop shrinking your posture to appear non-threatening. You stop nodding at everything just to seem agreeable. Your energy shifts from, I hope I fit in, to I'm willing to stand alone. And people feel that shift instantly. Presence is not about speaking loudly. It's about existing fully. The world senses when you stop hiding from yourself. Then comes the difficult part. You reclaim your standards. The people pleaser has none. He accepts crumbs and convinces himself they're meals. He tolerates disrespect and calls it patience. He stays in situations that drain him and calls it loyalty. But a man with standards begins filtering his world. He stops trying to keep everyone. He becomes selective, discerning. He walks away when something isn't right instead of negotiating in circles trying to fix what shouldn't be tolerated at all. This is where people begin to pull away. Not because you've become cruel, but because you've stopped being convenient. The moment you develop standards, you suddenly require effort from others, and effort reveals who actually values you. The people who vanish were never yours. They were loyal to your softness, not your soul. Let them disappear. Their absence creates space for people who treat you like a human being, not a tool. The most important thing you reclaim, however, is your inner permission. The permission to take up space. The permission to disappoint people. The permission to say no without guilt. The permission to choose yourself without apology. When you finally grant yourself that permission, you become untouchable in a way no amount of bravado could ever create. You stop needing validation because you validate yourself. You stop fearing abandonment because you no longer abandon yourself. This shift doesn't make you ruthless. It makes you sovereign. A man who is sovereign over himself is dangerous because he is no longer controlled by the emotions of others, the opinions of strangers, or the manipulations of those who seek to benefit from his compliance. He is guided by internal laws, not external pressure. As this version of you emerges, something fascinating happens. The world changes its tone. People become more careful, more respectful, more intentional. They don't walk into your life casually anymore. They don't make demands with the same entitlement. They don't assume your agreement. They approach with the awareness that you have a spine now, and that spine has a cost. This is the beginning of power. Not dominance over others, but dominance over yourself. The man who commands himself commands his environment. And the man who commands his environment alters the course of his life permanently. There comes a stage in your transformation when something subtle but unmistakable shifts inside you. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking permission from a world that never cared about your comfort in the first place. You stop translating your desires into softer versions so others won't feel threatened. What emerges is a man who acts from a center that cannot be bent, manipulated, or guilt-tripped. A man who is no longer living in reaction to other people's emotions. A man who has stepped into the dangerous freedom of being unapologetically himself. This version of you does not shout. He does not posture. His power is quieter, colder, sharper. It comes from the absence of fear, not the presence of aggression. He no longer wastes energy trying to be liked. He doesn't chase understanding. He does not soften the truth to avoid discomfort. He simply exists as he is, and that alone changes the dynamics of every room he walks into. People notice it immediately, even before you say a word. There is a heaviness to you now, a gravity. You carry yourself like someone who has stopped minimizing his presence. You do not rush to fill silences. You do not perform friendliness. You do not fake enthusiasm. Your stillness speaks louder than the old version of you ever could. The world looks at you differently because you are no longer signaling weakness. You become a mirror that reflects people back to themselves. Those who are strong will respect you. Those who are insecure will fear you. Those who once relied on your softness will resent you. But none of these reactions touch you anymore. Your self-worth is no longer out there. It's in here, locked beneath your ribcage, untouchable. Being unapologetic doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop contorting. It means you stop abandoning yourself to maintain a peace that always cost you too much. You no longer fear being misunderstood because you finally understand yourself. You no longer fear being alone because you finally enjoy your own company. You no longer fear disappointing people because you finally stopped disappointing yourself. This shift terrifies the world because it eliminates their leverage over you. They cannot guilt you. They cannot pressure you. They cannot shame you into compliance. They cannot use your desire for approval against you because you no longer desire it. You have stepped outside the psychological cage they spent years building around you. And freedom, real freedom, makes you unpredictable. Your relationships transform. You stop tolerating half-effort. You stop accepting conditional respect. You stop entertaining people who only show up when they need something. The moment someone senses that you will not beg, will not bend, will not cling, the dynamic either purifies or dissolves. The ones who stay treat you with the seriousness you always deserved. The ones who leave were feeding on your weakness, not your warmth. Your decisions transform. You no longer choose the safe option by default. You no longer sacrifice your own progress to avoid upsetting others. You no longer dilute your ambitions just to keep the peace. Every choice becomes cleaner, harder, more honest. You start building a life that is aligned with who you are, not who you pretended to be. Your standards transform. You stop explaining why something is unacceptable. You stop repeating yourself. You stop negotiating with people who aren't negotiating in good faith. You do not raise your voice, because raised voices are for men who lack power. You simply walk away. And the act of walking away becomes the strongest declaration of self-respect you have ever made. The rise of the unapologetic self is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is the quiet death of the boy who needed approval, and the birth of the man who doesn't. It is the end of the psychological slavery you carried since childhood. It is the collapse of the identity that kept you useful to everyone but yourself. And once this shift happens, something irreversible takes place. You stop living reactively and start living architecturally. You build, you choose, you define, you lead. You no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself first and let the world adapt. This version of you is not rude. He is undeniable, not aggressive, uncompromising, not cruel, unbreakable. You've come this far. You've seen the truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You've watched the old version of yourself fracture, collapse, and finally die. And now you stand as someone the world can no longer mold, guilt, or control. But understand this. Transformation isn't a moment. It's a war. Every day the world will try to drag you back into the old role. The obedient one, the quiet one, the useful one. You do not let them. You hold your ground. You protect your voice. You choose yourself first, not once, but every single day that follows. Because the rise of the unapologetic self is not a temporary spark. It's a permanent shift, a declaration that from this point forward, your life will no longer be dictated by approval, fear, or expectation, only by your will. If something in this journey woke you up, if a single sentence in this video cracked the shell you've been hiding in, if you felt the old version of you start to tremble, that means you're ready for what comes next. So do one thing. Stay with me. There is more to build, more to destroy, more to reclaim. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and step into the next chapter with the same unapologetic force you found here today.